Hey, Wellness Warriors, welcome back to the Burnout Resolution Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobé, and today we're talking about something that you've probably felt, the infinite workday. Maybe you're waking up to Slack messages, text messages, tons and tons of emails, all under time crunches. Maybe you're trying to mix that with raising a family, being in relationships, and even on weekends, your brain doesn't ever get to shut off. And by the time Monday rolls back around, you felt like you never had a weekend. Microsoft's research confirms that the average employee gets over 100 emails a day and gets interrupted on an average of once every 2 minutes. And given that we have research since the 1990s that tells us that one single interruption takes the average person 20 minutes to recover from and refocus on the assignment or the task they were trying to do before they got interrupted. If the average employee is getting interrupted once every 2 minutes, that pretty much trashes the entire workday, which causes the workday to spill into free time. Hence the infinite workday. No wonder so many people are drained and in burnout. Most of the headlines about the infinite workday point to one conclusion: corporate culture must change. And that's true. But for those of us who've dealt with corporations, we understand that's a tall order. Here's the problem. It can take corporations years to change. And while we wait, that leaves millions of people suffering each and every day, stuck in survival mode, wondering how they're going to make it through the next day. So today, I want to give you something different: how to protect your sanity, your health, and your soul right now. Interruptions are constant. Seems like we can't even go to the bathroom without being interrupted. And that leaves us exhausted because you keep having to regroup your thoughts to remember what you were trying to achieve before you got interrupted 2, 3, and 4 times. And given the solid research that every single interruption breaks your focus and takes you 20 minutes to recover from, this leaves us with very, very little time for deep, true focus. Most people think burnout is just about protecting their sanity, their mental health. So they think that managing their stress, taking a vacation, or even sometimes changing jobs will fix it. They think maybe if they meditate a little more, that'll also help. But here's what gets overlooked. Burnout leaves fingerprints in your metabolism, in your biology, and isn't just mental. That cholesterol that's creeping up, that blood sugar level that isn't quite normal, the creeping blood pressure that's sometimes going too high and even sometimes too low, causing dizziness, and perhaps that stubborn weight gain or that inflammation you can't get rid of. These aren't just signs of aging like many of my clients believe. They're signs of a metabolism pulled off track and out of balance due to stress and burnout. Your body wasn't designed for survival mode. It was designed as a vehicle to experience love, joy, and fulfillment. Even I had to learn the hard way that I wasn't just here to survive and earn a paycheck. I thought that having my own practice would be my ticket to freedom, that I could control my own hours and do what I want. And to a large extent, that was true. But I started suffering from the infinite workday as well. As a solo practitioner or a solopreneur, I was my own office manager for certain times. I was managing all of my staff, and of course, managing care for my clients, managing their experience, managing the services that we were offering. And it seemed like my day never ended. And I ended up in burnout. And I had promised myself that would never happen again because I ended up in burnout when I was going through my medical residency and training. And so I made a radical decision several years ago, and that was to never work 5 days a week again. I made a mental choice to take at least one full day off. I could rest, sleep in, go to the park, I could do whatever I wanted to do, go to the beach. And slowly but surely, I got myself out of burnout yet again. And through that process, and through helping thousands of clients get out of burnout, I developed a method that I've used with now hundreds of my clients called dynamic metabolic typing. And although I didn't know it at the time, This was a method I used subconsciously through my own knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine in getting myself out of burnout. And during the pandemic, it started to crystallize in my mind that I could do this remotely and not have to see clients in person because at the time we were forced to see clients remotely. I was forced to come up with a methodology that would be consistently effective, that would still help my clients through their fatigue symptoms and whatever other things. Sometimes they would come in with joint pains on top of their exhaustion or sleep difficulties, anxiety, depression, weight gain. And what I realized is through dynamic metabolic typing, which is based in traditional Chinese medicine theory, I could very quickly determine the pattern that was actually underlying and tying their symptoms together. And this helped me guide them with lifestyle recommendations through what I call the 4 pillars of wellness: eat, move, rest, and detox. And what we learned together, my clients and I, is that even without testing, I could determine with them what their dynamic metabolic type was and give them customized nutrition, exercise, sleep, and detoxification recommendations based on that dynamic metabolic type. What's so powerful about dynamic metabolic typing is that it tells you where your metabolism is stuck. And what happens with stress and burnout is you get these physiological changes in your body in response to that stress that's chronic and unrelenting. And it creates a pattern in your metabolism that is an abnormal adaptation, or what we call pathological adaptation in traditional Chinese medicine, or pathological balance. That means we're making 2 wrongs equal a right so that the body can keep going. And this creates this pattern. There's a way that your body responds and adapts where it sets itself in this imbalanced state so that it can still keep going despite having, for example, lack of nutrients or toxin buildup or inflammation. So it'll find its way around all these obstacles, and we call that pathological balance. A dynamic metabolic type tells you where your body is stuck in these abnormal adaptations. Once you know that, you know your way back out because you just reverse engineer it. And that's the beauty of dynamic metabolic typing. Once you know why you're burnt out, you also know how to reverse your burnout and actually recover. Your body has a natural blueprint it wants to follow all the time, but it also has within it a way to adapt in case it can't follow that blueprint to the letter. It can adapt and skirt around some minor issues with no problem. You won't even know it's doing it. It's all subconscious, it's all in the background, and the body is well adapted for that. But when the stress is unrelenting to the point where it's becoming burnout, your body has to keep finding more and more alternate routes around obstacles and problems. This is where it becomes an abnormality. And you might see some hints of it in your blood work. So you might see your cholesterol creeping up, your blood sugar creeping up, your liver function might go off the rails for a while, your weight might creep up, your blood pressure might fluctuate wildly. It might be too high, it might be too low. You might have a high resting heart rate. And now that we have our wearables and we can measure our heart rate variability, you might see that your heart rate variability is low, like in the 20s or 30s, which is not normal. So burnout is not a mental thing. It's also a physical thing. And because mental things are physical things, it's just the mental things are going on confined in the brain, but the brain is a physical structure. And the brain, whatever is going on in the brain is going to be relayed into the body on a physical level. And so although you won't find any diagnosis of burnout with your blood work, like there's no blood test to tell you you're in burnout, there will be signs. So I'll have some clients who know they're in burnout, they know they're exhausted, and they try to maybe exercise more, or they'll do intermittent fasting because sometimes it's just convenient, right? They're so busy, it's better not to eat. So they just get into this intermittent fasting, and by the time they come to see me, they're even more exhausted. When we do their dynamic metabolic type, what we usually find is that they were going against their dynamic metabolic type and not with it. So they weren't rebalancing the body, they were making it even more out of balance. And it's hard to know if something is going to work or backfire on you if you don't know your dynamic metabolic type. And so, for example, if you are a hot deficient type, and you start to eat really spicy food and do intermittent fasting and you start exercising more, you're actually going to make yourself worse because when you're depleted, you don't want to fast. You need to actually eat more when you're depleted, not less. And so if you're eating less when you're already depleted, it makes sense that you're going to become even more depleted. Also, if you're too hot and you're eating hot, spicy food, you're going to get hotter. The problem with becoming too hot is that creates a lot of acidity in the body. The body hates being acidic, and that can interfere with metabolism. It can interfere with circulation. And so all this causes people to spiral further down into burnout. Same thing if you're too cold. If you're cold deficient and you decide to become a raw vegan, for example, you're going to make yourself colder because raw food is cooling by its nature. The body hates being too cold. Some people will be running around with a body temperature that's too low all the time and they feel cold, but they don't realize that's not normal because that's just how they've always felt. But the body needs to be 98.6 degrees. If you feel cold, or even the opposite, if you feel warm all the time, that's not normal. And your body is telling you that it had to set itself in an abnormal place just to keep the peace. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that it's normal. It means that it's pathologically balanced, or making two wrongs equal a right. And this is what dynamic metabolic typing identifies so that you know exactly what to do from there, because you do the opposite. So if you're too hot, you want to cool yourself down with nutrition. If you are too cold, you want to warm yourself up with nutrition and keeping yourself physically warm as well. So heating pads, infrared therapy might be beneficial for someone who's too cold, for example. If you're an excess dynamic metabolic type, then you want to move more, not less. If you're excess and you have a lot of inflammation or toxins in your body, you need to mobilize those toxins so that they leave your body. So if you're stagnant, if you're sitting and working all the time and you're not able to get your exercise in, you're going to feel worse. And your fatigue and burnout will be because of the accumulation of the inflammation and the toxins. And so you want to do the opposite. So for people that have an excess dynamic metabolic type, those people may benefit from a gentle guided cleanse, which we do in our Wellness Warrior 9-week transformation programs. I've learned to support my clients with dynamic metabolic typing over the years. I created a system using a burnout assessment where you can determine your own dynamic metabolic type and get some easy tips and tricks in our 7-day challenge. We're getting amazing results in our challenge. People are sleeping better, losing weight, they're reversing their abnormal blood sugars, feeling much more vibrant, less achy, all in just 7 days. Simply because as soon as your body has what it needs, it will immediately start to use it. So as soon as you're flowing with your metabolism and not against it, your body will start to find a better way to be more efficient with its metabolism and its functions. And you don't have to do anything to your body to force it to do that. We just need to know what the dynamic metabolic type is and build our lifestyle around that. How we eat, how we move, how we rest, and how we detox. And then the body will take it from there. And that's what we're seeing in our 7-day challenge. It's so exciting. When I created the 7-day challenge, I wanted to give people a little taste of what the 9-week transformation program would be like. And it really exceeded my expectations. And I never cease to be amazed at how resilient the human body actually is and how miraculous a machine it actually is. So this is what happens when you realign with the body's natural blueprint. Once you know how it's out of balance, you know exactly what to do to get it back into balance. Now let's talk about those interruptions, because those seem to come no matter how well we eat, how well we move, how much sleep we get, and how well we detox. Interruptions are unfortunately part of our lives. One thing I've learned to do is to flip the script on interruptions. Normally interruptions are very draining, right? We have to stop what we're doing. The flow comes to a grinding halt. We have to suddenly change our attention and focus on something else. And then we have to try to go back to the thing we were doing before. So what if we use that as a recovery cue? Almost like a little tap on the shoulder that says, hey, now's your opportunity to recover from this burnout. Prevent this burnout if you're not quite there yet. So every ding, ping, and vibration from the phone with a text message can become a cue to reset. For example, when your phone suddenly rings and you have to pick it up, before you actually pick it up, take 3 slow heart math breaths just to reset and break the interruption and get yourself grounded again before you pick up the phone. Same with a text message that comes in. Before you respond, use it as a cue to take a few sips of your water, for example. When you get a Slack message that pops up in a notification, take that as a cue to stand up and stretch. Maybe do a couple jumping jacks or walk around the room a little bit, keep the circulation going, and then look at your Slack message. So these are what we call pattern interruptions. They're science-backed ways to retrain your brain and your body to recover instead of collapsing under pressure. Over time, as you use these as opportunities instead of just distractions, they're a great, easy way to restore your energy, raise your vibe, and soothe your soul. I've been using these pattern interruptions for years now, and I can vouch for them for sure. I'll sometimes recommend to my clients that they literally set alarms on their phones. You're going to get interrupted anyway. Why not have it be a purposeful interruption from yourself? A reminder to take some breaths, a reminder to stand up and stretch, a reminder to drink your water. These are science-backed ways to keep yourself out of burnout and to help you recover if you've gone down that slippery slope. And this isn't just based on common sense. Science backs 2 to 3 minutes of calm, deep breathing as an amazing tool to calm the nervous system and retrain the brain. Heart math breathing has been shown to increase heart rate variability. In fact, the Institute of Heart Math out of California was instrumental in the early research on heart rate variability that's now been validated in multiple labs. Breaking up sedentary times where you're just sitting at your desk grinding is great for mood and clarity and improves your circulation. And your brain has a natural rhythm that's about 90 minutes long. It cycles between high focus and low focus every 90 minutes. If you don't honor that rhythm, if you go against it, just like if you go against your dynamic metabolic type, if you go against this natural rhythm of your brain, you're going to get more fatigued and more burnt out. If you go with the rhythms, with the natural cycle of your brain that we call ultradian cycles, you improve your focus, mood, energy, and raise that vibe. In reality, we're all high vibrating beings. When we go against our natural blueprint, we dampen our vibration, so to speak. So just taking those few seconds makes all the difference. And making sure you take plenty of sips of water. If you just took a couple sips of water for every interruption, you'd probably be extremely well hydrated. And dehydration is a massive problem. Your body needs to be properly hydrated to function. If you're exercising and sleeping and eating, but you're not drinking enough water, you're undoing a lot of the work that you're putting in. We're 99% water by molecule, 70% water by weight. Water is a massive, major ingredient for our proper body function. The nervous system requires water to transmit signals, and the insides of our cells also require a lot of water to perform their functions. And then, of course, the water that makes up our blood circulating in our blood vessels is an important transportation tool that takes oxygen and nutrients throughout our entire body. If we're dehydrated, there will be pockets of our body where the blood vessels collapse because there's not enough pressure to get through to get to the tissues and cells. Learn to flip the script on those interruptions and make sure you're getting soul recovery for every interruption that comes your way. So make sure you've got your water bottle with you. Another tip for water is to put a pinch of Himalayan sea salt in your water to remineralize it. Many people have demineralized water from the filtration processes that keep our water clean. And so the minerals get stripped out through this process. So you want to remineralize your water. Make sure that you have a safe brand of Himalayan sea salts. Unfortunately, because heavy metals are everywhere, they're also in the sea salts. And so you can do some research to find a safe sea salt. One that I use based on my own research is Celtic brand. The body needs mineralization to retain its hydration. A deep spiritual truth is that our body is a vehicle for us to experience joy, love, and fulfillment. But when we look around, we see the opposite. People trapped in fear, trapped in these infinite workdays that never end, trapped in false beliefs and exhaustion. This is what we think is normal. People think burnout is a rite of passage to success, but that's simply not true. What we're currently witnessing, there's so much chaos, is the downfall of these false beliefs. Our newer generations have made it clear. They're not tolerating the BS anymore. The struggles we see now, burnout, chronic illness, mental health disorders, are the birth pains of something new. The change we've all been desiring is very possible. To live authentically, to be creative, to bring joy back into our lives is where we're headed. And it's up to us to create that world that we desire, instead of blindly repeating the one that we inherited. And that starts by choosing differently each and every day in our own lives, protecting our energy, flipping the script on interruptions, honoring our vibe, and listening to that still quiet voice deep down in our souls. It's important to have that stillness built into your day, even if it's just 5 minutes or even 3 minutes of heart math where you're completely still and just breathing. And listen to that quiet voice and check out what it's saying. That's where clarity comes from, and that's how we rebuild from a state of burnout into a state of joy and fulfillment. While corporate culture may be slow to change, we don't have to sit here and wait, because your body and your soul can't wait. Every interruption is a choice point. You can let it drain you or flip the script. Use it to realign with your truth, your joy, and your soul. If your labs are creeping out of normal range, if your energy feels flat and your vibe is off, and you don't have the passion that you feel you should, don't just chalk it up to aging. Burnout's not just in your mind. It leaves a fingerprint on your metabolism, your labs, and your life. The good news is that healing's around the corner. Take my free burnout risk assessment tool and find out where you are on the burnout spectrum. See what your next steps can be to get yourself out of burnout now, so you can start protecting your mind, your body, and your soul. Go to awakenwellnessnow.com to take our assessment today. And remember, burnout is not a rite of passage. It's your body talking to you and asking you to choose differently. The question is, will you? I hope you found this podcast to be useful. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and please share this with anyone that you know who might be experiencing an infinite workday. And remember that the infinite workday isn't just for an employee. There are millions of moms also experiencing an infinite workday at home who could benefit from this as well. Please share with them too. Thanks for listening, and until next time, many, many blessings. Thank you.